everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're all doing really well. Today I am going to be doing a video where I answer some of the weirdest questions that visually impaired people get asked. Now, I took to some Facebook forums that I'm on that deal with visual impairment, and I asked people to tell me some of the weirdest things, the weirdest questions they get asked about their visual impairment, and there are a lot. There were so many. There were literally hundreds, and I spent an entire evening reading through them, laughing hysterically at some of the things that came up. There was so many, so it was really hard to narrow it down to a select few questions, but I picked the ones that I have also lived experience of being asked so that I could relate it back to my own personal experience. But I could end up doing a series of this if you wanted me to do it. Also, if you are new to this channel, then hello, welcome to you all. My name is Emily and I make videos on a variety of topics such as style, beauty and living with a disability, because I myself have a visual impairment. I'll link a video in the card above my head which explains my visual impairment if you are interested to know about that. But if you are new to my channel, then please consider supporting me by hitting that subscribe button and also by clicking that notification bell down below to receive updates whenever I post a new video, because both those things are completely free and they would make me very happy. Without further ado, let's get on into this video and answer some weird questions about visual impairment. Have you tried contact lenses or glasses? I have mentioned this one before, but I often feel the need to say it again. People always say to me like it's a new thing, like it's a new revolutionary thing, like I've never heard of glasses or contact lenses, and it's as if I'm supposed to say, oh wow, I've never actually thought about that. I'm gonna go and try it. I know people are probably trying to be considerate and nice, and there's no malice or ill intent by them saying that. I know that. I know people aren't trying to be malicious when they say it, but honestly, it's just kind of a weird question to ask a visually impaired person, because if there was some benefit in that person wearing glasses or contact lenses, then they would have already done that by now. So yes, you might think, well, why can't you wear glasses? But honestly, so many visual impairments cannot be fixed by wearing contact lenses or glasses, because seeing isn't just about the eye itself and the lens and the way we take in light. Seeing also involves the optic nerves which connects the eye to the brain, and also the brain itself. So there are many visual impairments that do not benefit from wearing glasses or contact lenses, so wearing them would be completely obsolete. So to answer the question, have you tried glasses or contact lenses? No, and the reason for that is because in my case, glasses or contact lenses would have absolutely no benefit whatsoever. How do you dress yourself? Now, to me, this is a bit of a strangely phrased question, because if someone was asking how do you coordinate colours, or how do you know what outfit you've picked, or how do you find your accessories to match it, then I would be like, yeah, okay, that's a valid question. People might not know about things like colour detection apps or apps that help you to be able to distinguish clothing items. I can understand why people might want to ask that, and also if they don't know whether that person has some degree of sight left, like in my case, they might not realise that actually that person might be able to see things like colours or patterns. So I can understand why people would ask it in that sense, but when they are saying it in the sense of physically, how do you put clothes on, that is just a really weird question to me, because it's a person's eyes that are affected. If you are just asking this question of how do you dress yourself to a visually impaired person with no other form of mobility impairment, then it's just a very strange question, because it's very simple. You know, you can feel what garments you are holding. You know, trousers have a very distinctive shape. They've got two spaces for the legs to go in. It's the same as a dress. You know, a dress has a big space at the bottom for your legs to go through, and it has arms and it has a space to put your head through, and you can feel what way the front is by the buttons, and you can feel what garment is by the feeling of the fabric. And I know many people who organise their wardrobes in order of colour or in order of garment itself, so that they know what item they are getting out of their wardrobe. So for me, someone asking how do you physically dress yourself, it's just a very strange question to ask, because it's a simple process. It's just about putting garments on, and it doesn't really involve a great deal of sight. I mean, you're hardly going to be able to mistake a pair of trousers for a blouse, now are you? They have very different shapes. I think people need to think about it logically. Even sighted people have to get dressed in the dark sometimes. You know, people who work late night shifts or really early morning shifts, and it's a winter morning and perhaps they're getting ready, but they've got someone who works a later shift and they're still asleep. You know, people have to get dressed in the dark. My mum used to work very early morning shifts, as does my dad now, and he gets dressed in the dark. So you are able to do it without sight. Even if you are not visually impaired, you can get dressed without looking. So it's just the same for someone who is visually impaired. And actually, funny story, once I was walking down the road and there was a group of boys on the opposite side of the road who were talking about me, and they were discussing whether they thought that I was visually impaired. And one of them said, well, yes, because she's got a guide dog. And the other person said, well, no, she can't be because she's wearing clothes. And honestly, I just burst out laughing, and I just had to double take, because I was a bit like, did you actually say that? Like, it was just the most ludicrous thing anyone has ever said to me about my visual impairment. Like, that is honestly really up there, like the most weirdest thing anyone's ever said to me, and I thought that they were joking, but no, this guy was deadly serious. So to answer your question, how do you dress yourself? Pretty much just like anybody else. Why would you want to go to the theatre or the cinema when you can't see? I get frustrated with this question more because it's the way that it's phrased and it's the way it comes across, because it's not like someone's asking me, how are you able to enjoy and engage with the film or the stage play when you can't see, because then I would be happy to explain about things like audio description and touch tours that theatres do for people who've got visual impairments, because I think people who don't understand sight loss and who don't have any experience of sight loss might be curious as to how someone who can't see is able to enjoy and engage with a, you know, piece of stage play or a film. So I think that is a valid question to ask. But when someone says, why would you want to go when you can't see, that just comes across very abrupt, and to be honest, I think a bit rude, because people who have got visual impairments still want to have a quality of life, they still want to have a social life, they still want to enjoy the same things that people who are sighted would, and there are ways to be able to do that. There is audio description in cinemas, there's touch tours in theatres, there's audio description days at theatres too. Now, what happens when a visually impaired person goes to see a play or a film and they are using audio description? What happens is the audio describer will basically narrate certain elements of what is happening that a person with a visual impairment would not be able to see otherwise. This will happen in the intervals where there is no dialogue, so it will fill in the gaps so that a person who has a visual impairment will be able to understand what is happening visually and be able to interact and understand and follow along with the play or the film. So it is possible to be able to go to the cinema or to go to the theatre even when you have a visual impairment. But not only that, people who have got visual impairments want to have the same experiences that sighted people do. They want to enjoy the same things that sighted people do. They want to have the same experiences. They want to be able to do the same social activities and to be able to enjoy those things like anybody else would. So yes, even though a person might not be able to see something or might not be able to see something as well when they go to the cinema or to the theatre, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to have that experience. When people ask this question and ask it in this manner, what they are kind of suggesting to me is that people who have got visual impairments shouldn't have or shouldn't want to have the same experiences and the same opportunities as someone who is fully sighted. The next question that comes up, particularly if you have a guide dog, is how do you pick up your guide dog's poo? I don't know how many times I have been asked this question over the almost 8 years I've had my guide dog, and honestly, you are taught when you first get your guide dog a method of being able to pick up your guide dog's poo, which I can't believe I'm going to talk about this in a video, but there we go, this is what it's come to. So what happens is you take your dog out on a walk, and your dog will usually indicate by moving over to the curb if they are working that they want to go to the toilet. Ideally, you are advised to let them go for a toilet before you work them, but there are occasions where your guide dog decides that they want to spend when they are on a walk too. My guide dog does that a lot. So what happens if they are working and they want to go to the toilet, they usually will indicate by taking you over to a curb, or if you want to spend them when you're out, you will take them somewhere quiet and encourage them to go for a toilet by saying busy, busy, and then big busy if you want them to do a number 2. And then what usually happens if they do a big busy, you tend to know, because they feel a bit different when they're doing that. You can physically feel it. They will be squatting for a longer period of time, and the way you try and pick it up is you feel the guide dog's head, and then you feel down to where their derriere is facing, and that will usually indicate what spot they have picked to go for a toilet. And then it's just a case of getting out a bag and praying to the gods that things go well. And if it doesn't, and it doesn't go well, then there is such a thing as hand wipes and hand sanitizer that you can use afterwards. So what I'm getting at here is that it's a little bit of navigation, a little bit of luck, and a little bit of provision afterwards. That's all I'm saying. So how do you pick up your guide dog's poo? You just try your best. That is all you do. You just try your best and hope that it goes well. Is that a blind dog? People say that to me so much, and they'll come up to me and say, is she a blind dog? And I guess people get the terms mixed up because, of course, the term is guide dog, not blind dog. A blind dog is a very, very different thing, and a blind dog would not be charged with the task of guiding a visually impaired person. But often people will say to me, is that a blind dog? And to that I say, no, she's a guide dog. And they often get frustrated with me because they say, well, that's what I meant. And for me, I think it's just me being a little bit fastidious because I always correct them and say, no, she's a guide dog. But I just think it's funny when people use the term blind dog as opposed to guide dog, because they mean very different things. But not only that, it says guide dog on the harness, so they are called guide dogs and not blind dogs. But you wouldn't believe the amount of times people have said to me, oh, that's a blind dog, and I'm like, no, she's a guide dog. Do you dream? People with visual impairments do dream. Everybody dreams. Dreams are something you can't control. So yes, a person's experience of dreaming when they can't see might be different, but it doesn't mean to say that they don't dream at all. I think people probably are more curious to know is how someone who can't see anything or has very severely limited sight is able to dream and be able to, you know, see things in their dream. But to be honest, let's be honest here, when we dream, how many of us would be able to recall in perfect detail what something looked like? You have the impression of seeing something in a dream, because dreams are essentially just a big cocktail of lived experiences that are smushed together in a dream and manifest in our subconscious when we sleep. I don't see in my dream. I don't tend to see things. I tend to have an idea of seeing something, so it tends to be that I have a mental idea that someone is wearing a red jacket or someone is doing something or there is a mountain, but I don't see it. It's I can't explain it. I get the impression of seeing something because it's like my brain tells me. I can't ever recall what something looked like or what something was doing because I don't really see in my dream. I can't explain it. I guess because I've got some degree of sight, I do see, but I don't see everything. So for me, it's like some things my brain tells me what it is, and some things it's just an idea of something. It's just as if my brain has told me something has happened in this dream. I don't know how it is for everybody who's got a visual impairment because everyone sees differently. People who are totally blind and who have never had any experience of seeing something might have a different experience to me. But also people who have lost their sight. I've met people who have lost their sight who often tell me that they see in their dreams. So I can't really answer how every single person who is visually impaired sees in their dreams, because the spectrum is too large. But I get that this is an interesting question because, you know, it's fascinating. Dreams are fascinating, the mind is fascinating, and to try and explore how different people with different sensory disabilities dream is very interesting. I understand that. But I think it's not a case of do you dream, because yes, we do dream. It's more how do you dream? I think that is the more interesting question here. So, do we dream? Yes. How do we dream? The answers are probably limitless. How do you know if you are having your period? This one has come up a few times, and for me it's a bit of a strange question just because I don't really have an answer for that, because let's be honest, do we ever know visually that we are on our period when we first get it? When you first get your period, you tend to get a feeling that something's happened, and you can tell when you start your period. You just physically know it. You just know. When you first get your period and you suspect you've started and you need to go and put a pad or a tampon on, you don't see it. You just feel it and you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and things go from there. So it's the same for someone who can't see. You just tend to gauge the situation. You just know your own body. You know your own body. You live in it 24/7. You know it. So you'll know when you start your period. You just know. There are ways that you are able to kind of guess and decipher when you're going to start your period through things like tracking your period through menstrual cycle apps. So you can kind of guess when you're going to start so that you can prepare for it, obviously if you can't see. So I think people expect some very strange answers, but to be honest, for me and for many people that I know who have periods who can't see, you just tend to just know it, and you also tend to try and guess when you're going to start your period so that you can expect it, and when it happens you just tend to know. So that is everything I have for today's video. Those are some of the weirdest questions that people with visual impairments get asked. Let me know down in the comments, do you have any other questions to add? Any other weird questions that you get asked? What do you think about my list? Do you think that any of the questions that I have mentioned are not weird? Because I'd also be interested to know your take on the questions that I have picked and mentioned. And thank you so much for watching this video today. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye guys!